Hello and welcome to another Driven Catalyst live stream. Before we get into this, and this is as always, I would like to express that these opinions are my own, and even though we are on the Driven Catalyst YouTube channel, these are my opinions. Okay? That being said, we're gonna be tame, right? But I think this is going to be a different New Music Friday than we've ever had. And I feel like I'm probably giving the wrong impression with all of these disclaimers, because if you've been anywhere on the internet since the singles for Lorde's new album started rolling out, and if you're on the internet today, I imagine there is a lot of negative opinions in circulation about the new album. And maybe that's just on my corner of the internet, so I don't want to, I guess, lead the witness in any way. But I have so many thoughts. This is a word vomit situation. And I will say there are some lines on this album that made me want to throw up. But there are other lines that made me want to grow up, you know? So we're going to talk about it today. And I would like to have a larger discussion about artistry and the music industry in general, too. I'm not saying I'm the best person to lead the discussion or even that I'm kicking it off. I guess I just have thoughts and I would like to participate in the larger discussion that's probably going on online about the music industry and artistry in general and commercialism. Because I think that a lot of the opinions out in circulation about this album, and I think my initial feelings that I have had about some of the songs I've heard would not be what they are if my bar for Lorde wasn't so high already, which is unfair. It feels unfair, I think. And I had really visceral reactions to a lot of the album. One song played, and I'll get to it, but the first few moments of the song happened, and I audibly said, oof. That song went on to be one of the ones I really do enjoy. But I will say this, after finishing the album in its entirety, mind you, I have been a villain in group chats with my friends over the course of listening to this album. I've been a villain. I say that, I would say generally, I'm not poo-pooing anyone's joy. I'm saying we are all kind of in agreement. I think in the moments as we were talking about it, we were kind of in agreement. But I now feel a little bit villainous about those feelings, because I honestly would say maybe I would rate this an 8 out of 10 after listening. And I want to talk about all of that. And I don't think I deserve a gold star or whatever for thinking, hey, I really do think this album was successful. But I want to talk about the metric for success and how I had to challenge myself a little bit to reconvene with what that metric of success looks like for me as a listener, and the relationship that I think thinking about and consuming something as a listener, how that relates to commercialism. All of that being said, this album was produced by someone who was involved in Charlie XCX's Brat. So it is funny to have any sort of conversation about commercialism in relationship well, no, it's not funny. It's funny to have a conversation about commercialism and saying, and I think ultimately my thesis statement is that I think we're having a hard time with this because it's different than what we would expect of Lorde in a lot of regards. I don't know. I really am going to try and dive deeper and get more into it. This is such a word vomity take and analysis. And I just want to say, like, I just don't think I know any better than anyone. These are just my thoughts, basically. I'm not trying to be holier than thou or have any sort of, I think I have it all figured out, or tell anyone that they can't dislike the album or that it's, like, not a well-rounded opinion to dislike it or have any feeling one way or the other. I'm not trying to, I guess these are just my thoughts. And I feel like I had a very full circle relationship with the music as I was making my way through. And so I guess I just kind of wanted to talk about that process and thinking through it and analyzing it. Because it was an interesting journey I feel like I went on. So I guess that's where I'm coming from. Okay. So I guess to get back to commercialism, the producer that worked on this album, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that too. I'm going to get a little bit messier than I ever have today. Or than I think maybe I would prefer to be on the internet publicly, but I'm going to do it with as much grace and care as I can, because I think that does matter too, or that matters to me. Okay, Jim E. Stack is the producer that worked on most of the album. Caroline Polachek, Gracie Abrams, Dominic Fike, Joji, Bon Iver. Those are some of the names that Jim E. Stack has collaborated with. Charlie XCX, of course. Most notably, I think, to the discussion my contribution to the discussion at large is that this producer worked on Girls So Confusing featuring Lorde. Okay? I'm going to consort with TikTok momentarily to fact check something before continuing, because there is another flavor of messy that I am indeed going to mention as cleanly as I can. But please hold while I check in on this. Yes, okay. Okay, let's talk. This is all unsubstantiated, what I'm about to say. It is, I would say, like drama and speculation as far as I know. And I am the messenger. I don't feel great about being the messenger, but I think it's important to the discussion at large a little bit. It is to me, at least. And I feel okay alluding to it, at least, or haven't discussed how much I'm going to say yet. But given that there is a song called Current Affairs, and there is a line in Broken Glass where Lorde does talk about cheating, I'm gonna take the bull by the horns and acknowledge the fact that there is rumors and speculation on the internet regarding Lorde, who is an artist who I don't know and have never met, who most of the people online talking about don't know and have never met. So there's that. But that maybe there was a relationship or some sort of messiness, some sort of thing that would spark songwriting occurring between Lorde and a former producer. And that there may have been overlap during that situation and a committed relationship, maybe not so committed anymore, that producer was in at the time, allegedly. Okay, so that speculation exists on the internet. You can find it, you can go look at it. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm gonna allude to it and point you elsewhere to go find it. Okay, well, last night I saw a TikTok made by presumably the ex-girlfriend of the producer who worked on this album. Operative word currently is that she's now an ex-girlfriend, and so I'm going to point, so then that's the next step and where I'm going to point you to go find maybe more pieces to put together. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. But she does again say, she makes some allusion to cheating in Broken Glass, and there is a song called Current Affairs, and she does have a song on the album about a pregnancy scare ? And she talks about like feeling sick to her stomach about the experience of some of these things, right? The reason I danced around and alluded to that and didn't want to say it all plainly, and the reason that I walked on eggshells about how this is an artist and I don't know her personally and yada, 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 is because there's a lot of discourse on the internet about parasocial relationships with celebrities. And I have a lot of shoulds and supposed tos that I feel about how to talk about people and their celebrity, right? I think Lorde is hugely a part of an era where she's a part of the Urban Outfitters era. That's how I'm going to shorthand it. I was in like middle school, high school, when counterculture and alternative and all of these buzzwords, indie, all of these buzzwords that I feel like are pretty popular now, where that became cool. Where it was like, it's literally counterculture for a reason. It's like, we have done this thing where we have popularized what was supposed to be the unpopular, and it's become a marketing gimmick too. I've seen it a lot on TikTok where smaller artists will say like, hey, this is your chance to say you discovered this artist before they blew up, right? I think it's really cool that culturally we have all decided that it's a great thing to find someone undiscovered or someone that other people may not praise and think of as perfect and successful and the ideal celebrity. I think it's cool that we are looking for diverse media, for a diverse in terms of like experimental is what I mean, not any sort of like cultural background. I think that's cool. I think that's really good. I love the idea that we're doing that culturally, like culturally meaning the world at large. But it's causing weirdness, I think. And I have always, this is not new to think that it's weird or to notice it, but I'm really noticing it with this album release. And I really had to call my own self on it as I worked my way through the album. Because I went into it and felt a lot about the TikTok I saw last night with the ex-girlfriend of the producer and the drama that I've consumed for years about the speculated other dalliances that existed. And like I said, my bar would not be so high if I hadn't already been a consumer and a devotee based on the other products put out by the artist? Well, I do feel like the idea that I'm working through these things, engaging with these ideas, and thinking about myself as a consumer and not a listener after listening to this album is a mark of success in relation to what I think the album is attempting to communicate. Which makes me feel completely different about the album. Because I at one point had to be like, hey, this is someone creating art based on their experience. Good, bad, ugly, messy, morally corrupt, or not. And that was just something to sit with, I think. And the more there were lines that I felt like I connected with, the more I allowed those lines to carry weight, the more I let the way the music builds and then drops out at certain moments, the more I thought about how sonically I don't love how harsh the production is on this album, but that maybe what experience is being communicated through this art, it calls for harsh production, not poppy commercial or beautiful commercial production. I started thinking about all of those things, and it really made me like the album a lot more. And it was kind of, for sure, I'm giving myself a gold star a little bit, right? Like, in my head and my heart, full disclosure, a little bit of me is like, wow, I am so well-rounded and cool for being able to arrive at this conclusion. Like, a little bit of me does feel holier than thou, like, for thinking and feeling this way, right? Like, a little bit of me is like, I'm right. I don't have to be right. That's my feeling, ultimately, too. I kind of, like, am open to just being in a discussion about this, you know? Hopefully friendly. And with a lot of consideration for the fact that, again, like, Lorde is a person and an artist. And I don't know her. Okay, so I guess I'm going to continue to disclaim. And I am just trying to be, like, fully transparent in saying that, like, yeah, a little bit of me feels like I deserve, like, I'm a good noodle for having come to these conclusions. When I think it would be fair, too, for someone to be like, okay, but ultimately music industry, it is a product. It is something that's being sold. She is selling records. This is a job, right? And you could have that take, too. I don't know. Whatever. Also, I don't know, I'm arguing with air right now. Like, this is, I guess, just me presenting different analyses and takeaways that people may have. That if I really think about it in its whole, like, I could see that coming up. But without further ado, I guess, like, let's just talk about the music, right? I guess let's get to that. But I did say I was going to do some word vomit, and I feel sufficiently vomited. First and foremost, I will say, overall, I felt like I really liked and understood the singles that were chosen to be singles better after listening to the whole album. I would like to be given more time with the album, and I do feel like I could forecast what singles maybe I would have chosen personally. But again, it's like not like I think mine would be the right choice. I think obviously the artist is making a statement with the singles that were chosen, and I feel like after listening to the full album, I understand that choice. And I feel like analyzing those choices also helped me in turn understand the album more. I will say I don't know that I feel like the choices for singles were commercial choices, and I feel like that further confirms my overall feeling and takeaway from the album that then led me to be like, you know what, like, maybe this is, like, to me, 8 out of 10, like, a successful album in terms of what I feel like it was trying to achieve, if anything at all. If making a piece of art means setting a goal for something to be achieved, even, and not that it's just a vessel for emotion. Yeah, you know what I mean? For emotions and human experience. I will say, like, I am so tired of people talking about ego death. And maybe that's annoying and unevolved of me, but like, just as a concept on its whole, as someone who went to liberal arts school, like, I couldn't care less. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And it's fair if that means I suck. I just don't want to hear about it anymore. To me, it's overplayed. I don't really know what you mean by it. I'm sure a lot of people that have experienced it, like, maybe they can all collectively be like, yes, oh, it's so profound. We have to talk about it more and more. But to me, it's become like a buzzword in a way that I feel like homogenizes an experience that I have. Granted, I don't think I've experienced ego death. But I feel like people rattle it off like we all just know what they mean. And maybe I'm stupid, but I would much rather, I think this to more is what I mean. I would much rather people use words to describe their experience than rattle off a buzzword that I feel like just sounds good in health and wellness and experimental. Does that make sense? Like, I'm all for it. I'm happy that it feels like this was a profound experience you had. I'd much rather hear about it. And hey, I think that is what this album is a little bit. So, like, boom. That being said, Jensen McRae, My Ego Dies at the End, is such a phenomenal song. Go listen to it. Let's keep talking about the album. 11 songs, 35 minutes. I rounded up. This is comparable in length to Pure Heroine and Melodrama. Ballpark. Melodrama is the longest of the albums, as it should be. And, I didn't check Solar Power. Hey, hold on. I feel bad for Solar Power in that she is sort of 50. Wow. Solar Power Deluxe is 50 minutes. Okay, so what is Solar Power Non-Deluxe, though? 43. Okay, so they're all ballpark. But Solar Power then is the longest, I believe. So there's that. Just if we want to talk about the artist's discography as a whole, which I do. So, yeah. Notes for the Hammer. I said I feel better about it knowing it's track 1. There are some lyrics in the song that I hate, and then some that I'm obsessed with. And so it goes. You know, that's my takeaway for Hammer. Sorry, once again, the gas lift on this chair is broken, busted so bad. And so I slowly sink like once every 5 minutes, and it's annoying. So that's why I make a whole production of having to get back up every time. Okay. Something that stood out to me too, though, is so there's the build where she, like, I guess musically hyperventilates is what we'll call it. And I feel like it sounds like she goes, a hammer, which, like, hey, I'm not the singer here. It's Lorde. Lorde's the singer. But she does that part. And in my mind, I've just decided she's saying a hammer. In the lyric sheet, she's not saying a hammer, technically, on the lyric sheet. But that was interesting to me, actually. Technically, the only time that she says hammer is in the lyrics when she says, when you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I like that. I thought that was interesting. To have a song called Hammer, the only time the word hammer is used is, like, on paper lyrically, is when you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And kind of engaging with that, and that definitely being a theme throughout the album. There's a line in one of the other songs where she talks about, let me pull it up. It's in David, I believe. She has some lines that are pretty... Yeah. Was I just someone to dominate? Being in the final track of the song. the final track of the album, and the first track having the line, "When you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail." I think that's profound. I think that's a profound choice. And it worked for me. I liked that. I have a note that it's a beautiful life, so why play truant? When she says it, it sounds a little bit like she also says, it's a beautiful life, so I play truant. Which, kind of sitting with that statement, and I guess the juxtaposition of those two statements, how it sounds like both and how they're opposites. I think that's interesting. I liked the line, "Today I'll go to Canal Street. They're piercing my ears. I'm making a wish when the needle goes in." The idea that normally making a wish is like you're blowing a dandelion, you're blowing out a candle, you are doing a destructive action. When you really think about when we make wishes, you're like throwing a penny into the well. You're making some sort of change. The idea that you're making some sort of change, so then like getting a piercing fits that, but that in all of those other alternatives, you are the person making the wish is doing the destructing. And in this situation, it's a painful thing. The person making the wish is experiencing pain. That stood out to me and I thought was interesting. All of those things made me really get on board with Hammer as a text for analysis. And I would say that most of this album I'm going to engage with as a text more than talking about sonically. But I will say I have notes about builds and sounds that I liked. And I will say that I already said this, but a lot of the production choices are pretty harsh. They're not euphonious. They're very cacophonous. And I think that fits. I think we're talking about a cacophonous life experience. And that's something weird about music. Is if you're selling music and you're telling about a cacophonous life experience, it doesn't necessarily make sense to make a cacophonous album, but then also, yes, it does if we're talking about art and not commerciality. So boom. Let's keep rolling. What Was That was, I think, the first album that we got. The first track, single. The first single we got. It's the second track. This time I used, I don't use these headphones for every New Music Friday, which is pretty embarrassing to admit, because I do think, apart from my good, nice editing Sennheisers, these Sony over-ears, I think they're the WXM5s or whatever. They're great headphones, but I used those today, and I feel like they did also really contribute to the listen. The beginning bass in What Was That gave me chills this listen, so that was fun. I like the lyric, "I try to let whatever has to pass through me pass through, but this is staying a while." That's a lyric I think I really connected with when you think about this album as an album about a cacophonous experience and about how it changes your relationship with yourself and the world, and the role chaos plays in our lives, even if it's self-created chaos. I think that's like an interesting line. I like the idea that whatever has to pass through, the idea that the word has is carrying a lot of weight, that it's necessary or inevitable. Yeah. And then ultimately, I think this song, there's a lot of lyrics in this song that I think I would analyze that Lorde is likely talking about the role fame has played in her life, or just being a part of a commercial industry and becoming a product, or perceived that way. I think What Was That does a lot to add to that argument or discourse that Lorde is exploring throughout the album. I listened to this out of sequence, which frustrates me as someone who likes to listen to albums all the way through in order for the first time. But I had an issue with Spotify, so Shapeshifter got skipped over. So I went straight from What Was That to Man of the Year. So for a moment there, I was thinking that, wow, the first 3 tracks on the album were the 3 that Lorde chose to release as singles, which I thought was pretty interesting. And again, it kind of helped me wrap my head around the choices, maybe how they were made. But that's not the case. Still, though, it makes sense to me, I think, now that I've listened to the album as a whole. Shapeshifter is track 3. This is the song that started. And I said, oof, out loud. I said, oof. But then by the time the song picks up, and it does pick up pretty quickly, I'm there, okay? I love the strings in this song. I really like it. I think this is one of the songs that is most euphonious. That's probably an annoying word to use. It sounds the best. I think Shapeshifter is one of the songs that could have commercially been put out as a single. And then I feel like the beginning, whatever, I can't remember what I had such a visceral reaction to. I think it may have been something about chewing gum, right? Is that the song with the line? Yeah, chewing gum I know, don't have the sour taste that's in my mouth. No thoughts. Other than that I think that would have been maybe more kitschy. If it had been released as a commercial single, then I think that line would have more charm to it. And everything would have kind of softened together more. But that's not the point of the album. So that's why this wasn't a single. So that's why this artistic decision then hit harder. Like, it felt like a blow. As a listener, I didn't like it. So again, I'm like kind of talking about how we construct these industries in ways that soften things and water down art, maybe, is another way to take it. And we stop thinking about artist intention and analyzing that. And we more quickly fall into a court of public opinion, blah, 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 and consuming. Which, like, I don't think we should be demonized playing the role of consumer, because that's what's been sold to us, right? But I think that's kind of what we're supposed to be talking about in relation to this album. So from Shapeshifter, oh no, I haven't actually talked about it yet. I really like the strings in it, though. All the metal that I've messaged is, I think, a good line. How we incorporate media, social media, technology into poetry and art, texts, films. It can be really discombobulating sometimes and gross and feel like weird. And I like this line. I thought this was a nice poetic way to incorporate a phone. A little bit, maybe. It's overly what's the word I'm looking for? Subverts what's actually meant to be said, right? We're just talking about like phones, messaging phones. But it's an example of, what is that? There's that literary device used where you reduce something to a part of it, and you refer to the whole thing as just a part to sort of make a statement about something being greater than or less than, literarily. Using that to abstract what we're actually talking about, the fact that we're talking about texting, basically. I thought was effective. I liked that. Tonight, I Just Want to Fall. That line and everything that comes after it, I'm so there. I think that's a sonic note. I like the way the music sounds after that. Yeah, okay. The way sometimes it drops out versus sometimes it builds after that line, I think is so cool. How you brace yourself as a listener for all the music to fall out and then it builds up, or vice versa as you're listening through. I thought that was cool. Man of the Year. This is what, track 4? Oh, sorry, that's Solar Power. I wish I was more familiar with Solar Power as well. Just because I feel like being intimately acquainted with the rest of her discography probably informs what symbols she's using and how way more. Whereas I feel like I have way more literacy with Pure Heroine and Melodrama because I favored them. Man of the Year's track 4. So this is when I made the note. I'm tired of people talking about ego death, which I've already covered. So if I get more into it now, I think y'all will just think I'm obsessed. But it's not my favorite. I feel like I've made my point on it. We'll move on. The way she affects her voice in this song, I like. And I've noticed this across the album, actually, where there's lines that she hits almost like if you were riding in a car and you were singing Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, you wouldn't like full belt, right? Like no one is going to sit there and actually do their best vocal performance of it. There's like you affect your voice to almost indicate to those around you that like, hey, like I'm just being silly. She over affects her voice sometimes across the album in a similar way, which isn't to say, oh, she's like not giving her best vocal performance. It means I almost feel like she's doing something that is indicative of, hey, I'm performing. And that really worked for me in this context. I really liked that choice. And I think it's fun too, because when you think about, if you want to look at this again, commercially as an album, as a consumer, I like the idea that I can be in the car silly with friends and put on Lorde, and that I'm going to hit this line kind of more dramatic and theatrically than the other lines. That I think works. So that line, sorry, I feel like maybe some of the way I'm talking is also like I'm not trying to infantilize or like talk down. I don't know. I'm just so hyper conscious of like how I'm probably coming off, and I'm a little bit uncomfortable with talking about something with so much I felt like I should feel, or I think you should feel, or whatever, or I think you do feel. There's a lot of projecting, and I don't know. It makes me worried. I don't know. Okay, let's keep the ball rolling, though. I'm not going to fall over myself and be annoying. Well, I probably will be, but I don't mean to be. The way she affects in her, yeah. The line, my babe can't believe I've become someone else, someone more like myself. I really like that line. I feel like that's a big statement, and I feel like a lot of people can probably connect to that. So I liked it. Okay, yes. I mistook my note in Shapeshifter. I kind of can't remember the Tonight I Just Want to Fall. I think that probably similarly, I liked that part sonically, but the moment I really remember making a note of, ooh, this there's this lyric, and then everything that comes after is big, and I like it, is Let It Flow Down to Me in Man of the Year. The rhythm, build, and flow of these, I adore it. I think that's so beautiful. I think Man of the Year, listening this time, which is crazy because initially I think I listened to it as a single and was like, meh, I don't know. I think this is one of my favorite. Like, listening to this in context this time through, it's beautiful. I really loved it. It became one of my favorites, I think. Yeah, this is my favorite of the singles. Favorite Daughter is is track 5. I said I'm here. I like this track quite a bit. Love the bridge. Love the melody. That's all I have for Favorite Daughter, but I really liked that one. Favorite Daughter, again, I feel like if you take it out of the context of being a daughter and think about it as performing and trying to be everything for someone and live up to expectation, or thinking that you are and having almost like it being sort of a situation where you're like, well, yeah, everyone loves me. How do I go from here? Which is what I'm projecting onto Lorde and assuming she must feel like after being so massively successful and well received and beloved for the art she was creating so young. how do you live up to that? What do you do? And then all of a sudden life is complex and it's only getting more tumultuous and you're making decisions and you're in the public eye. What? And then you're trying to make art, right? And you're trying to make art that's commercial, that people like, but then maybe you want to step away from all that noise and not do that. But now the world is watching as you make choices that are uncommercial and not well received, and you just have to deal with everyone having something to say about it. That sucks. That literally sounds like it sucks. So, wow, what a good song to come of that experience that I'm assuming and analyzing this may be about. I liked Favorite Daughter a lot. Current affairs. This is when she lost me, and I started to feel queasy. But let's talk. I like that this song sounds like the What Was That intro. I don't know about music necessarily, but I think it does sound like a little out of tune flat, ? Maybe. And what is it, like synthy? Let me just play a little bit of it for myself to refresh. Yeah, is that synth? Yeah, the way it has the same sound as Current Affairs, though, or the way it has the same sound as What Was That, was interesting to me, stood out to me. I liked that. The sound of the guitar as it comes in afterwards, too, to kind of break up some of that synth, because I don't love the sound of the that synth, necessarily. It's not my favorite. But the guitar as it comes in to break it up and we build this world, that worked for me. I liked it. I like the line, that's how it tends to start. You're in the light, then you're in the dark. I like that a lot. And then there's a line about and then someone lights the fuse. And the idea of she who brought us, rider in the dark. And the idea of dancing, whatever the line is in Liability. Swaying alone, stroking her cheek, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And Rider in the Dark, playing with light and dark, and that being symbols for this. And then the idea that someone lights a fuse, and that it probably, using that to be it feels big, it feels like fireworks, it's this sharp experience, and I assume in how it relates to an affair. Again, I'm assuming that this is a play on words, talking about an affair. And not just about current affairs, but I think that's an interesting choice to talk about an affair and rumors, and using that to talk about the court of public opinion and commercialism, and then kind of current affairs being the double entendre to discuss the court of public opinion and drama and rumors and what's going on in the world and I don't know how it feels to go through. I think that's interesting. Heaven all caps, hate the refrain. I'm sorry, Lord. I don't remember what it was, but I do remember having a pretty sharp reaction to it. Let me remind myself. The refrain. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not a big fan at all of this song. Yeah. I think I understand how it fits in, though, as I just described to you all. I like the double entendre, affair, and opinion, and using it for what's going on in the world. Oh, okay. And then I'm a girly who sits and looks at Genius lyrics. Apparently, Lorde said in an interview that the honeymoon line is about Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee. I included the quote because I copied and pasted it. They were so free, and I was just like, whoa, being this free comes with danger. Which I guess that does help kind of explain some of that double meaning between it being something going on currently and kind of behind closed doors affairs. And then, of course, the Pamela Anderson historical context that we can have. I thought a lot about the rumors that exist in the world while listening to this track too, which I'll just acknowledge and then walk away from because it's not mine to talk about. I don't know anything. But I've read the rumors because I am not better than anyone. I have parasocial relationships. I know I'm probably not supposed to. That is a should and should not that I actively negotiate with in day-to-day life as a consumer of media, but also as someone who likes engaging with those shoulds and should nots and thinking about being sort of wise about how we think about media and art. Okay. I'm stalling. I don't want to talk about Clear Blue and GRWM, which is funny because GRWM means get ready with me. Okay, we'll talk about that a little. GRWM is like the influencer get ready with me hashtag, right? Or just GRWM while I get ready for an engagement event, blah, 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 blah. But in this context, it's for a grown woman. And she talks about how she's looking in the mirror and she can't find a grown woman when she looks in the mirror. Or I guess that's the analysis. One of the takeaways, I guess my initial, when I heard that, I felt like she was looking at the world and kind of being like, I can't find a grown woman. And it was like a line about feeling like we all kind of have to act like we have it figured out, but I'm looking around and I'm realizing no one has it all figured out. That's kind of how I took it. I don't know how the right way to take it is, and I haven't sat down and really analyzed to figure out how, like, what makes the most sense with the rest of the piece, but that is an interesting subversion, I guess, that it's this idea that GRWM and contrasting sort of a very commercialized, get ready with me, watch me put myself together with, I'm looking around, I can't find a grown woman. That's pretty interesting. That's a really interesting thing for an artist to do. I'm just now realizing. Cool. I like that. I hate Clear Blue. I really don't like that song. It doesn't connect with me. But again, it's like, do we put, which is more important? How it is for the listeners or how it is for the artist and artist intent, or I don't know. I like to think that maybe this is a vessel for feelings that we're putting out in the world, and that there are probably people that have experienced this and they know exactly what she's talking about and it connected with them. I had a visceral reaction. I think there's something to learn from that visceral reaction. I'm trying to analyze and learn from it. That's all. This was a hard listen for me, though. It really was. I don't like the line, you finally figured out who you want to be, a grown woman in a baby tee. Baby tees are all the rage right now, though. I can appreciate that. I don't love that line, though. I do love the line, though. Right? For every put down, I got to put up. Don't worry. I got you, Lorde. I'm sure she's so grateful. No, actually, Anywho. I like the line, back when the stolen spirits went straight to the head. I thought that was a good line. Obviously, I think probably we're talking about American Spirit cigarettes. That kind of fits within the grunge realm, the alternative world that Lorde inhabits and substance that she talks about. But then also the idea that stolen spirits going straight to your head. I don't know. The spirituality. how it connects to spirituality, and that feeling like that's sort of a loaded or a big way to say something. And then, yeah, the line, I can't find a grown woman. That was when I was like, oh, GRWM, grown woman. But I do think that Get Ready With Me, grown woman, the idea that GRWMs are us watching someone put themselves together. And I guess her negotiating with that concept. I think that's cool. Okay, Broken Glass. Asterisk, immediate save, loved it. Production on this song does sound like Brat to me. I made a note of that. Specifically, of course, the song that this producer worked on, Girl, So Confusing. I do ultimately like this track. I have a note to talk about parasocial discourse. Oh yes, because Broken Glass is the line that has, or it has the song that has the line about cheating in it. So we'll pull it up. Between Current Affairs and Broken Glass, like, I feel a little bit better. I'm still very much having to talk myself down for alluding to this drama and these rumors, but let's see. Did I cry myself to sleep about that? Cheat about that? Rot teeth about that? So, cheat about that. And then let's hit the chorus, because again, I think this song is pretty relevant to everything we're doing with the album. I want to punch the mirror to make her see that this won't last. It might be months of bad luck, but what if it's just broken glass? I really love that. I spent my summer getting lost in math, making weight took all I had. Won't outrun her if you don't hit back. It's just broken glass. So from my understanding, this song and making weight as a phrase has to do with eating disorders and recovery, which I think has to be acknowledged when we're talking about this piece and art as a whole and analyzing it. I really love the song, and then I like how it connects with whichever song. I think it's What Was That, I believe, that talks about covering all the mirrors and not being ready to see yourself yet. I think I really like this album, y'all, actually, which is so funny because you just saw my visceral reaction to Clear Blue and Get Ready With Me, or Grown Woman. But I really do love, I really like the contrasts she plays with on this album. I really do. The idea of like talking about having this relationship with yourself where you're not ready to look at yourself yet, and where you're negotiating with how you feel like you should feel about yourself, but you don't feel about yourself. How you feel like you should look, but you don't look. And the idea that all of that is magnetized in the public eye. God, that's a pretty gut-wrenching experience. I feel like, to speak candidly, I guess, just on such a teeny tiny microscopic scale, the experience of kind of having to do marketing stuff sometimes and being on camera for stuff like that, or just being someone who works in media or is media adjacent and went to school for it, being obligated to be on camera sometimes when maybe if you could go home and cover all the mirrors, that's what it feels a little bit like is what you need. Just having a taste of that and knowing how that felt and knowing kind of what it was like to move through that experience. And then the idea that exponentially that is what Lorde was probably experiencing and is talking about in these moments is really crazy to think about and wrap my head around. And I think that I just really like having a song like Broken Glass and talking about wanting to punch the mirror, but also wanting to punch the mirror in this case to make her see that this won't last. And the way that you can take that as I literally can't keep treating myself like this. Like, this is unsustainable to have this relationship with myself, or I'm punching the mirror to tell that girl that I'm seeing in there that like everything will ebb and flow. We will make it to the other side of this. The idea that there's both of those that you could debate back and forth about what she means. The idea of the relationship with the mirror changing, going from covering it to punching it. Those are really interesting choices being made lyrically, and I really like that. And then Broken Glass and If She Could See Me Now, which is the track that comes after this. So Broken Glass is track 9. Track 10, If She Could See Me Now, has similar lines. Verse 2, in the gym, I'm exercising. All my demons, make them keep writing. Yesterday I lifted your body weight. I pick a song and listen to it till it's just a piece of music and everything else falls away. Talking about kind of escapism, getting strong. In the city, I hear the voices of the ancients. They're calling for us. Hear their horses running up Prince Street. Because I'm a mystic, I swim in waters that would drown so many others. I don't love. I said so many others. It's so many other, and then there's a choice word. I'm not crazy about that, frankly, because I feel like we're singing about things that so many people could connect with. Especially women. And so that choice of word, I'm not saying it's problematic. It's not my favorite choice. But it's fine, whatever. I think at large, what we're doing with this art is more impactful. So, but yeah, I like, that we go from a song about where, the phrase making weight and talking about someone's relationship with their body. And we move from there to talking about exercising demons at the gym. Yesterday I lifted your body weight. I like the idea. Well, I don't like the idea. But one analysis of this, I think, could be that the your in question is like the speaker is speaking to their self in this text. The idea that they went from being in a place where they were pretty unhealthy and they have arrived at a place where either metaphorically or literally they are able to lift their own self up or lift themselves where they were up when they were at their weakest or feeling their smallest in a bad, I think that's interesting. And I liked following up Broken Glass with If She Could See Me Now. I like the idea that the she in question is the speaker talking about their former self. Yeah. The line, it made me a woman being hurt like that. I can feel, don't need fantasy. Oh God, if she could see me now. I think those are big lyrics. And then the closing song is called David. Timestamp 147. We have this sort of cinematic Stranger Things synthy feeling. It's like scaling, I think, a synth scaling. I really liked that. I have noted that the chorus is beautiful and it works for me. The story this track is telling is really interesting to me, and I did like the production on this one. And then after that, I start listing some of my final thoughts about the production as a whole across the album. But David, I think, is the piece that pulls it all together. Whether you want to decide that I'm kind of was snooping around the analyses on Genius Lyrics. And so I've seen people analyzing that she is pretty directly referencing people she has worked with previously, industry professionals, and kind of almost, I've seen the analysis that this is an accusation that, hey, you in a very direct sense was exploiting me. But I think this too could be taken as sort of a more broader address to the industry, to whatever. Let me find some of the lines. But I like, there's the line, I don't belong to anyone. I made you God because it was all that I knew how to do. Am I ever going to love again? Will you ever feel like a friend? Do you understand? And then this is really interesting to me too. Tell It to Him is the final lyric on this track. I'm going to go ahead and read this genius annotation word for word. Yeah. So Eve Ruby on Genius wrote, this lyric reminded me of Hard Feelings, Loveless, which begins with Go Back and Tell It. Also a song about a breakup and rediscovering yourself. I don't know if I love the line also about a breakup. I don't know that I feel like David is about a breakup, but maybe I haven't sat with it enough. Yeah. And then here's another genius annotation. This one I think is from Leah Leah Hee. Lorde is referring to the conversation image of pure heroin. Don't you think that it's boring how people talk? Which is Tennis Court. And then we have Let 'Em Talk and World Alone, which from my understanding, those bookend the album. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's what everyone has always said online and been like, how profound. Go Back and Tell It is in Hard Feelings. Yeah. And then In the Path, this one is from Solar Power. If you're looking for a savior, that's not me. So then those very obviously engage similarly with I Made You God because it was all that I knew how to do. Here, okay. This is the line I meant earlier. Oh, dark day, was I just young blood to get on tape? Because you dimed me out when it got hard. Uppercut to the throat, I was off guard. Pure heroin mistaken for featherweight. That is a crazy line. Her debut album is Pure Heroin. Pure heroin mistaken for featherweight. And you dimed me out when it got hard is a pretty crazy lyric too. I think that's profound. I like Was I Just Young Blood to Get on Tape? I think that really connects with, in addition to the pre-chorus that I'm not going to read the lyrics for, but you can go read for yourself, the way she is using innocence and sacrifice to talk about herself, and tying that in with pure heroin. Was I just young blood to get on tape too? Very clearly feeling to me like she's talking about, hey, like I was so young, I was just sort of being milked or exploited for this industry, maybe. I think all of those are interesting lines to analyze that I think add to the conversation at large that I feel like this album is exploring. So, if you're one of the haters, wow, I've been talking about this for an hour. Okay, I need to wrap it up. If you are someone that walked away from this album and didn't like it, felt a little bit disappointed, because I think we all have really high standards for Lorde, and maybe this subverted our expectations. I'm not saying you're wrong or that you shouldn't have those feelings. I very much understand and connect with them. I did connect with them. But I do present to you this analysis as well. Yeah. I hope this is, like I said, I feel like this is me a little bit. I feel like I have been more critical than I tend to be in these New Music Friday streams, and it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But yeah, really, I just have been reflecting a lot on the role of art and how I'm supposed to be feeling about this, or not supposed to be, how to feel about art. Because we've made it commercial, which is great. I think it's awesome to, in a world that goes around based on commerciality, to have art playing a role in that. The idea that profit equals value a lot in our society. The idea that art has a seat at that table, I think is good, because it means that we are then valuing it. But the idea that then that kind of perverts things too is interesting to me. I also want to acknowledge the fact that I have seen online that the What Was That single release album cover, that Lorde looks like, I don't know the name of the experiment, but there was an artist who did a social, performance art piece or sort of social experiment where she sat at a table and I guess like, I don't have a quick way to pull it up or figure out how to address it. But I've read pretty in depth about that piece of art, performance art. And I liked the idea a lot of that concept. And I think initially after I listened to the album, I felt like, man, I wish we had gotten more of that. And as I've talked through it more, I feel a little silly because I think we got a lot of that. So that's everything. That was a lot of word vomit. It was a lot of me walking on eggshells, dancing around things, kind of not wanting to offend or say anything too harshly, which is kind of just my prerogative. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but it's where I'm at now, especially on work live stream. But let's wrap it up. We'll wrap it up. Those, I guess, that's me kind of trying to talk about a little bit where I'm at up here, though, so you can understand where I'm coming from as I'm saying these things, so you know kind of what to do with some of these sentiments I'm expressing. You know more where they're coming from, I guess. But yeah, okay, boom. I hope you have a great Friday. It's pretty exciting that we made it through the week. Go listen to the new Lorde album. I hope that you listen and can figure it out and decide whatever for yourself. Look for whatever new releases are out there too. I feel like it's so easy to... This was a given. Like, we're all listening to the Lorde album today, I feel like. So be sure to find another new exciting release, maybe from an artist that is less listened to today, because hey, they treat me well every week. The newer artists. So go find something good to listen to. Listen to the new Lorde. Have a great rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. And I